Hi, I'm Eli Krantzberg, and in this video we're going to look at Relayer by UVI. It's a fantastic new multi-tap delay plugin that goes miles farther than all the built-in delay plugins that ship with our DAWs. It's got onboard control for feedbacks and repeats separately. It's got impulse responses, 2 effects units. It does all kinds of wild things, and we're going to take a look. Let's get started. We've got the global and mix controls on the basic page here. We can set the time of the repeats. When we're in sync mode, it'll be musical subdivisions. And when we're out of sync mode, we can do it in milliseconds. We can set the number of repeats and the amount of feedback separately, which gives us a lot of control and creative power with this plugin. The input gate is used as kind of a bypass. When it's on, we can automate this to basically turn this plugin on and off. There's global modulation here. These display the readout of what we set in these different editors over here. We have separate wet and dry controls, and if we're running this on a bus, we can just hit the solo button and just get the wet mix, or we can just dial down the dry mix. Right now I have it on a snare track, so I'm going to leave both up. We have color, which is really interesting. It allows us to add a variety of different impulse responses onto the delays or the repeats that are generated. So that adds a lot of flavor to this plugin. And there's master filter controls. So I have this on a snare. Let me just bypass this, and it's doing whole notes at the beginning of each bar. And this is what it sounds like as is. So let's put this to work. I'm going to turn it on. Preset management happens here, and it's a snap. There's a ton of great presets that ship that really utilize and show off all the features of this. But I'm going to start with an initialized preset for now, and it defaults to an 8th note rhythmic delay when it's in sync mode. And let's start with that. I'm going to dial up a couple of repeats. Now we can snap the repeats to the straight grid, triplet grid, dotted, or any of them, or freely. I'm going to leave it at triplet for the moment. And let's start by dialing up a few repeats. All right, that's pretty boring. Now the first thing we can do is alter the rhythm of the repeats with this scale over here on the right. Now this is defaulting to 1 unit of, in this case, 8th notes, but I can do variations of that. Like, for example, maybe I want to have this one be half of that, which would be a 16th note. And let's vary some other ones. Let's make this one maybe a triplet value over here. And let's make these double. They'll be quarter notes. Now, the other thing we can do on this gain page is we can alter the volumes of each of these repeats that are generated. So let's try and set some dynamics. We can drag these all the way down to the bottom if we want to actually create a rest in the rhythm. So that'll break up the rhythm like that, for example, and create a different type of rhythmic pulse. So we can get some nice subtle rhythms going on. Back to the time page. Maybe I want to alter this one. I'm going to set it to free. Maybe I want it slightly ahead or behind. Let's see what this sounds like. We can further alter the feel with the swing parameters here, and we can alter the entire scale of the swing. A little behind the beat. That sounds nice. We can warp the entire scale of the timing to more of a logarithmic rather than linear feel using this field over here, and we can see the values shift. I'm going to option click to snap it back to default, and I'll leave this one with a little bit of swing. And we can add some modulation, and this is global to the whole series of repeats. Now it gets really interesting with this over here. We can add an impulse response, basically a reverb or different type of room or space, to the repeats that are generated. So with this on, we have a mix slider over here. Let's try some different settings. And we can filter the entire series of repeats. So those are the basics, but it doesn't end here. We can pan the taps, and we have different presets that we can call up for values here. And once we create our values, we can, of course, just draw them in ourselves if we want. And maybe I'll put one of them centered just for fun. We can scale them using these values over here. So this shifts all the values up or down. Here we can offset the steps, and we can scale the values similarly here, and even flip the graph with this field. And we can play with the stereo imaging here and here. The width is really nice. It adds up to 10 milliseconds of delay to add an extra sense of depth to the panning. Now, similarly, in these fields, we have these controls to scale what we have set for our different repeats. And here I'm offsetting the steps. Similarly with gain, we can do the same thing. So we can change the rhythms up this way and get some interesting results. Let's look at how the feedback works. I'm going to start with just 2 repeats, and let's set one of these to 16th notes. So here we're working with less repeats, but feeding them back. Let's look at what happens when we do some really close together. The effects section allow us another level of creative control. Now again, starting from initialized patch, let's dial up some repeats. I'll start with a bunch of them and a little bit of feedback as well. And let's adjust. Now on the Effects tab, I'm going to turn it on here. We have various types of filtering. Let's try some wah-wah. So we can either draw them in, start with presets, or modify them here. And we can offset using an LFO. There's even a little mix knob here with this out control. And there's different types of filtering. Now we have a feedback page here which allows us to determine which of the taps that we're generating we want to feedback in. And when we combine that with these different gain settings and the rest that we can create, we can generate some different rhythms by determining which step of these repeats we're going to send back for the feedback. So let's start by just adding some panning to get some nice variations, and let's experiment. And here it is with the first tap. And you can see the stages change here. So that's a different rhythm and a different cycling through the wah-wah. Here's the second tap. Fourth tap. And we can further add some drive and filtering before it enters into the feedback. And all this using just one of the two possible effects. So you can see that this is an open-ended type of creative tool with endless possibilities. All in all, I think that UVI have hit a home run here with Relayer. It's a fantastic creative tool for both routine and innovative uses. And I think they score high marks on all counts. Now, installation is a snap. UVI sends you a serial number, you enter it, and then the product appears in your account, where you can then download it. The patches and presets are fantastic. They really take advantage of all the features that Relayer has to offer, and they are fun to go through in that they can stimulate ideas on how to use different parts of the plugins. The interface is great. Couple of little features I'd like to see. I wouldn't mind if that the color control was available on a per-step basis, so you could exclude specific repeats from being affected by the impulse responses. Another nice feature would be if there was an edit page for transposing the individual steps. And the other thing I'd like is if we could initialize, rather than initializing the whole preset, if there was a way to initialize each of the individual edit pages, it would make experimenting a lot more safer to take chances and then know that you don't have to start from scratch again when you want to work out some new values on one or other of the edit pages. In terms of sound, this is a no-brainer. I give it a 10 out of 10. It's fantastic. The modulation is great on it. The filtering is great. Everything is great. In terms of value, hands down, this is the best third-party delay plugin out there that I've certainly played with. It's available in all the popular plugin formats, and I think it's a great addition to the bread and butter delay plugins that ship with all the major DAWs.